Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it's time for our conversation. Let me introduce my guest, Obinna Uzoije. He's an author. He's also an entrepreneur. He's an author, a child of industry, advocacy for industrial revolution. Welcome, Obinna. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Henrich Akomolafe is the MD, Acotex Nigeria. During the break, he did tell me that he installs elevators. He also is into IT, construction, and real estate.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Forbes 30 under 30.
Yes.
So you're under 30.
Definitely, I'm 26.
You're 26. Yeah. Obinna, I guess you're also under 30.
Yeah.
Ha. You see what I'm always saying? Anyway, I shouldn't just go into it this morning again. Let me just focus. Nancy, focus. Obinna,
Yeah.
You came to my office last week. We did speak. You wrote this book, Child of Industry. And during my intro, I did say that during our interaction, you said something that was so profound to me. You said it, but I didn't respond to you, but it just hit me. And in the course of our discussion, you were like, okay, in NYSC camp, they still come and teach coppers how to make candles. When I think, is it not Kenyan, did not Kenyan girls, or there are a lot of things happening in Kenya now. Yeah. Was it South Africa, some young people, or which people actually made and manufactured an aeroplane that went round? Kenya. I think is in Kenya.
It's in Kenya, yeah.
That went round, they watched is it the AFCON or something, with aeroplane?
Yeah, it's in Kenya.
Young
guys.
Young guys. And when you said it to me in the office, that here we are still teaching our young people how to make candles, it really struck me. And it struck me in the sense that, are we really wasting a generation of young people? And are we really telling ourselves the truth? For those that know me on this show, and I've been doing this for a very long time, I've been saying it that we need to harness so much. They'll say Nigeria has potential. Potential, no, they finish. We know they see the end of potential when other countries are beating us to it. I just said, in Cote d'Ivoire, no blackouts. In Ghana, at least I visited Ghana, no blackout, at least the times I was there. And here we'll say we are giant of Africa. And we praise, any small thing we praise. You know, let me just give you a minute to tell me why you did put this together. I hardly do this. Sometimes, you know, not that I don't bring authors, I do, but my interaction with you, I just said, fine, I just needed to also hear what you guys are feeling. Since you guys are the under 30, you are the young and youthful population that should move this country forward. I'm not an old person too, but, you know, but let me give you a minute, you know.
Thank you very much. I see it from a huge standpoint of education. If the same thing our forefathers studied in school are the same thing we are studying now, I don't think we have made plans enough to change the economy. Because if we are still learning that same obsolete thing, because I see our education as somehow obsolete now. Because, okay, that's you talked about, it happened in NYSC, it's called the Jack Week. They called in entrepreneurs to teach people that are supposed to be the leaders of tomorrow. And he was teaching how to make candles. I interrupted, I was like, this is not what we are supposed to be learning. Why? You see the zonal inspector shouting at me, and they are saying that the statistics they were pulling up is that millions of houses don't have electricity. And the reactionary measure you're taking is that you are teaching us how to make candles. So I see it from that standpoint. If we are supposed to change the economy, we are supposed to change it from a standpoint of productivity. There is no other designed way of making or attracting financial resources to Nigerians apart from when people become productive. So if I see it from a standpoint of education, if we can change the type of education we give to our children, the younger generation, which is the only lifeline Nigeria has now, if we can, that's why I put the book together. I'm trying to tell them that no, we should go back to processing. You said something, we had a lot of potentials. A step ahead from having potentials is what? Processing those potentials. potentials may be these raw materials. I saw the last show, before this show, the man was talking about cocoa. He said something, he mentioned it a lot, that it caught my attention. And before the discovery of crude, we were still exporting crude, but we are exporting what? Crude cash crops. Why didn't we process that cocoa? That's why we have not sustained it. Why didn't we process that groundnut? We only do it in little quantities, and before you know it, a lot of policies are fighting it. Policies that should help it, registrations that should help it are pushing it down, and we didn't teach ourselves to process these things. No, instead we exported them. I remember our teacher always say, Nigeria exports her raw materials to make what? Revenue. This is what we learned. This is our mantra throughout primary school. So they didn't say Nigeria processes her raw materials. They said Nigeria does what? Exports them.
And we still do that till tomorrow.
Till tomorrow. So we didn't start exporting crude when we discovered oil. No, we started exporting crude the first time we started seeing raw materials, because when we saw the colonialists per se come in and they looked at our groundnuts, wow, nice, and they wanted to exchange it with soap, they wanted to exchange it with peanut butter. We saw it as philanthropy because it was a value-added finished product. Now
but we didn't know at that time that we can also make that soap from the resources that we have.
The thing education should make us know. Education should build confidence. That's the same thing you did in Singapore. He, after writing a big book from third world to first world, he said that the only thing that has made Singapore what it is today is what? Confidence. They educated the whole citizenry in building confidence in what they produce, and they created policies to help them produce what they produce. Thank you.
Henrich, what do you have to say?
For me, I would say I'm a success story in terms of this, will I say, industrial revolution. Because when I was in secondary school, I was the art student that studied economics and government. And when I went to university, I didn't school in Nigeria.
You did your secondary school?
Yeah, I went to GSS Wari. So, and then there was only opportunity for me to study computer engineering. So I had to go from art school to computer engineering. I'm just going through a process because I'm trying to analyze the education he's talking about and how we can really make a solution to that. So I studied computer engineering, and then I did my master's in IT strategic management. So the world is changing really very fast. The world is not waiting for anyone. Industrialization is moving really very fast. And the only way we can sustain Nigeria is through these young guys that are in the secondary school, primary school. We need to adapt a new system. And that system is called STEM. Science, technology, engineering, and maths. And I still thank God today that I had to go through this process. Now I can do anything. Now I told you I'm into elevator industry. I was a computer engineering. So that thing has given me that background knowledge. But our educational curriculum is not carrying all those stuffs. And we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution, which has to talk with quantum computing, artificial intelligence. What is the future? The future is not the educational system we have now. So if the government doesn't focus on that theme, it's going to be disastrous.
You know, okay, this is what I really talk about almost on a daily basis. That how can we begin, I don't even like the word harness again, because harness our potential. I'm tired of those two words, especially as it comes to our economic. Then the other word is diversify. Yes, those three words, I don't like those words anymore. Because in Nigeria, okay, harness our potential, diversify our revenue sources. I'm really tired because you can see that we have the capacity to do a lot than what we are doing right now.
Definitely.
And a lot of us are still held. Close to 100 million people are poor in the country. And you did say in your book, and let me go back, because we just need to establish a lot of things. We're talking about education. You did say in your book, and let me quote, did Michael Faraday, that's the inventor of electricity, did Michael Faraday invent electricity by mass producing candles? So that goes back to what you saw during your NYSC camp. And you accused, or you interrupted. And they shut you down.
They shut me down. Even my fellow coppers told me.
So you don't go learn?
Yeah, no go learn.
Learn how to make candles.
Candles, yeah.
When we're in the fourth revolution.
Yes.
I hope, you know, I hope that this will just begin to give us that kind of burning desire to make Nigeria great. Because Nigeria just needs to be great. A lot of countries are leaving us behind right now. Still sticking with education, and let me take you a bit you know, to your book, which you said low levels of education. Nelson Mandela says, of course, that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. What should we be doing? Henrich did say STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths. That does not mean that perhaps for folks that are studying
no, now they are now implementing arts to it. So it's a process. You have to go through those, because anywhere you find yourself, you should be able to solve a problem. And that is why we are Nigerians. One thing I said the most resourceful thing in Nigeria is not even the oil or the natural resources we have. What we have is the human power, the people, the human resources, and that is the major strength of Nigeria. And if we can't implement that in our system, I don't think we are moving anywhere further.
Now, can you just speak about the low levels of education a bit here? Why, you know, you think that this level of education will really take us nowhere?
Okay, in the book, there's something I did. I addressed major deciders that say this is why we are a third world country, and our level of education is one of them. When people are saying diversify, do this one, and all those language you're tired of presently now, what they're trying to say is that cassava as a raw material has a lot of uses, but we have had only one customer because we produce only gari. Do you understand? Cassava, we produce gari and fufu, and this is what our forefathers did 400 years ago. And we have not moved a step further because we have not had investments in research. Our education is not research-oriented. We just want to talk about that. And you see someone that studied very good courses in agriculture, and he comes out and says he's now a programmer because we are in the fourth industrial. But you spent the prime of your youth studying agriculture, which is the bedrock of the society. But the fact that you see that every old woman in the village does cassava farming and sells gari in the market, and that is you now be like, that's for poor people. Now, what if education tells you that, no, apart from gari, we can produce ethanol, we can produce starch, we can produce disposable plates, now you have diverse customers. You have a lot of human resources that you can employ. You can employ chemists, people that studied chemistry. You can employ people that studied physics to develop machines or to look at or work in where we have the machines that produce the ethanol. Now, what does leadership do in this education I'm talking about? Now, a governor per se can have a state that produces a lot of cassava.
And we're the largest producer of cassava in the world.
Yes.
In the world.
And that's the potential. That thing you talked about now is a what? It's a potential. That thing you're tired of, potential. The potential is that we are the largest producers of cassava, but it becomes kinetic. The opposite of potential is kinetic. It becomes kinetic when we start bringing out diverse uses of that cassava. A governor can say, we produce a lot of cassava in my state, but we have a brewery, a beer company that uses ethanol.
Processes.
Yes. You're going to them and saying, okay, how do you guys get? We import.
Yes.
But we have the farms. What do you need? What do you need? How do this Abia State, for example, how do Abia State give you the ethanol you need? What are the, and he's going back to the village, setting up companies, bringing machines that will process this cassava and extract the ethanol, and you're connecting them to this. You now see that a lot of young people like us now will now say, wow, I can do the business of supplying ethanol to these breweries. You understand? And people are getting jobs. We are scared of agriculture now because we think that it's only something for very old people. We are scared of unearthing all our raw materials and processing them into value-added finished products because we think that it is something for poor people. Everybody now wants to go and code. Everybody now wants to go and do social media management. Everybody, and nobody wants to.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to go back again and say, wow, we have lime, we have cocoa. Almost everything we use. Okay.
We have palm kernel.
And we import the palm kernel oil. even till now, I was on Radio Nigeria the other day, and my colleague, the person that I was interviewed with, the guy, he was talking about he studied engineering, but he produces palm kernel oil. But he said that what people import is way cheaper. Now, thinking about it, so still in that education, if America says we want to start producing yam today, our yam farms will close. We want to start sending yams to Nigeria today, our yam farms will close. Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah. Because we have not made productivity a focus of our education. If we have millions of people in Nigeria, I think every arm of the leadership should go to how do we produce things. China made a lot of companies and manufacturing companies come to their country because they knew they had the population, they had the human resources to employ. But we have these human resources, and almost everything that is here, even if I say everything that is not produced in Nigeria here now should disappear, I think we will almost live here naked. Because put the textile, put the shoe, you know, we just assemble. We go to where I produce it. Anytime we say I'm a startup now, someone in China is making money. Because you get your textiles from him, you get your everything from him. You just assemble it, your shoes, the leather. You understand what I'm saying? So I think education should take us back to that. It will be a powerful weaponry to fight with the ships of consumer mentality.
Henrich, you know, let's move a bit from education. We've established that our education is not educating Nigerian young people right now for the future. And I don't know, it really behoves on our government across all levels to begin to rethink education. When you also come to education, you talk of dilapidated infrastructure. Infrastructure even across board. Poor infrastructure across board. You definitely need infrastructure in what you're doing, because when you were telling me about elevators and all that, I just said, fine, we don't do that in Nigeria, so you install the ones that are imported.
Very soon we will start, because we are getting to that process. And the only major challenge we have when we talk about education, we have to talk about power and security. Because it made mention about when you want, if America start producing yam, it's going to even be more cheaper to produce in America than in Nigeria. So when you talk about that, then you have to talk about power, you have to talk about security. Because any investors that are coming to Nigeria to implement all those strategies, to start a factory, they have to consider the overhead. And when you don't, you spend almost all your money generating power, buying diesel and the rest. It makes the product very expensive. And that has been another challenge we have in Nigeria: education, power, and security.
How should we attend to the concern of infrastructure? Because you also mentioned it in your book. What should we do?
Infrastructure in Nigeria is a very strong word. We have looked at infrastructure as a myth, as something that cannot be, especially in places that productivity is high. I come from a place, Aba. You need to see how many shoes leave Aba every day. But you look at the infrastructure, you look at places like Ahihoro, you look at places like Ariaria. These people produce millions every day. And to some extent, I think that they are running away from, because going to a place that has good roads and has electricity, bills will skyrocket. So I think they are running away from those places to come and stay in a place that they can do what? Produce. Now, there's a type of government leadership environment that should affect infrastructure and businesses. It's a leadership environment where business moguls, big business people are connected to the government in the favor of the people. Now a man says that, I produce this thing, or the government goes to a man. This is what the government should do. The government goes to a man that produces something in a certain area. What are your problems? What are the problems you have here? He says it's roads, it's electricity, and the government says, okay, this is what we are going to do. We are going to make roads for you. We are going to, it's a very simple thing that the government should come to. There's this electric grid called kinetics there's an Aba, they just left it moribund. It should give the whole Aba electricity. This is when you pursue industrialization. When you pursue industrialization, infrastructure is a byproduct. Because you know that haulage will have to take place. And things will go, mass production will have to take place. And without transportation, Margaret Thatcher said that economists work on infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Yeah. It should not be something we should be talking about now. Talking about infrastructure now and talking about roads now is a shameful thing. It's not something we're supposed to be. So when people mention infrastructure and I now say, and people say we are the youth, we can do it by ourselves, you don't need to blame the government. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you going to do the road construction by yourself? We should. Why I wrote this book, I want to put it to the people that it should get to a point that where we want to elect people into offices that should govern us, the person should have blueprints that pursue industrialization, not blueprints that look for electricity that we are going to use and iron our shirts. But no, we have passed that stage, and for us to produce here, that's why I'm bringing it into the education. That child of industry is a general view. This is what the role electricity should play. This is the role infrastructure should play. This is the role policies should play. We have weak economic policies. You want to start producing this glass now, and you see one standard of whatever organization coming to you, and they are not helping you say, this is what you have to do, this is what you have. They'll say, no, you have to have this, and because of you don't have this, you're going to pay this. So imagine paying over 100,000 just to get a NAFDAC number because you want to employ people.
So that is not also encouraging industrialization.
It's not encouraging it.
It's not. Henrich, you're an employer of labor, isn't it?
Definitely.
How many people do you employ right now?
I employ quite a few because I have 3 different segments from the IT to the engineering. So.
Now, why I brought that in is because perhaps if, a lot of people are watching us today and should take out from the show today why there is that essence. I deliberately had to do this today to bring both of you, young people, to say, perhaps also ring it into the ears of the government. Because at the end of the day, you see even the government or the high-placed officials or those that have access to more resources than the rest of us, they send their children abroad to go have the kind of education that is not accessible here, the kind of education that is not available and affordable here. And they come back and they, give it to us on social media, all their pictures, oh, graduation, oh, my son, oh, my daughter. And I'm like, what do you want the rest of us to do, or the rest of us that don't have that access? But let's talk about the factor of culture in terms of having this industrial revolution, which we've talked about. Because I also think that culture may also take, may also, one way or another, it may inhibit or it may encourage industrialization in whatever form. Do you understand? Like coming to tell coppers to do candles in the NYSC campus. Some of your core members are like, no, you know, go they happy, say, make you manage this one and all of that. So there is this culture of like mediocrity. There's this culture of that we don't even know when we should be saying things that are better, that are for us. I don't know if both of you understand what I'm saying. Yeah,
I understand you.
So you want to comment on that, Henrich?
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of us young guys, we always complain the government this, the government that. I'm also a young guy, and I've employed quite a few people, and I'm doing a lot of things. Quite all right, we were complaining about people schooling abroad. It was a fortunate situation that made me travel abroad because I did get the admission in the university in Nigeria. So for me, I think one of our major culture factor that has been affecting us is negativity. We always complain about the government, and we don't even know it's the government. The government is still the people because we are the people that put the government there. And we should check what these people were doing before we put them there and before we start complaining. So we should leave the aspect of complaining, having a negative culture, and then start thinking about positivity. Start thinking about how we can change the system. The system is still in the hands of the youth. We don't need to wait for anybody before we start implementing things. We don't need to wait for somebody before thinking about skills. He was complaining about candle. If somebody wants to teach me about candle now and I'm not interested in candle, I'm going to go learn what is interesting to me. I'm not going to wait for somebody to implement or to give me old-fashioned technology. So for me, I think culture also have a strong play in that sense. So we should leave negativity and then focus on positivity.
Okay, Obinna, let's talk about a chapter in your book which you talked about skill and leadership. I want you to, expatiate on that. You said that being a leader without being skillful is a major problem we have in our society today. We define leadership and skill as distant relatives, but in order to lead people, you have to be a leader in the space of your own skill. Has your skill elevated you to stand before kings?
Okay,
So which do we really lack? Is it skills or leadership in the country?
I think there's a we juxtapose the both. Leadership is not a factor. It's not a consequence of skill. As in people lead in fields that they are not skillful in. They have not garnered enough skill in. That's why you see people do things that are alarming. I see leadership from a standpoint of skill. For someone to say that I want to lead a people, at least you should have led in the space of your own skill. I was trying to marry the both. I was saying that a person that is skillful, a person that is just normal can be replaced. It's just like someone walks here and the person is replaced easily. But a person that is skillful, it can be replaced, but it's not so easy to replace a skillful person. And I was trying to bring in the space of skill to the mind of the Nigerian child. Every child needs to have a skill. In a country that we are trying to pursue productivity, every child needs to have a skill. And skill is not economic activity. There's economic activity and there's economic creativity. Skill is not going to say, I've started a business, I import clothes from China and I sell to Nigerians. That's not a skill. You may have a skill in marketing, yes, but we were trying to produce. I'm trying to look at a scenario where Nigeria becomes a family that strives to pursue productivity, not economic activity of buying and selling. I go to markets like Ariaria, and in a place where they are not producing, there are places that they produce and there are places that they don't produce. In a place they are not producing, you check Parker there is into dustpan, and you see made in China. You go check cup, made in China. You see that it's 90% China. And that is an international market that we should have been at least producing. Are we a 200 million people that have nothing to offer to the world?
You spoke in your book, you also wrote in your book, rather, that I think you quoted Professor Pat told me that said a town in China makes 60% of all the buttons used in the world.
Yes.
So all the buttons that we use, perhaps the buttons on my own clothes too, is made by just a town
in China.
In China.
Kiotao.
Yes.
It's called the button capital of the world.
Of the world.
Yeah. You see, a local government has said, let us start making something in China. Maybe they have plastic, this thing that comes out from the plastic tree.
In China, they have different cities that manufacture different things.
This is what used to happen in Nigeria. Communities used to have commodity boards where they produce. You remember those things?
Yes, I do. I talk about it all the time.
They actually taught us in primary school.
Yeah.
So when you want to find cocoa, you know where to go.
And
when you want to find cassava, you know where to go.
The standards are there. You now see those communities, they employ people, chemists, and they're saying this is what. Now, what does the government do here? The government makes it possible for that community. This is where infrastructure comes in. This is where electricity comes in. This is where education comes in.
Even security.
Security. I see the leadership now as a victim of wrong education, wrong definition of education. Because this same thing we learned too, that Nigeria will have to export their raw materials to make money, is what they learned too. And they grew up with that knowing.
And the thing is, education is quite different from skills. It's as if you have a car, and you don't have the skills. How are you going to drive the car? Yeah,
this is what I said. I said that in the beginning. I said education is not schooling.
Yeah, you said so.
Schooling is not education. We mix the both up. Yeah. Education is something you do in your mind.
But if we can implement that STEAM, definitely it comes with skills.
Yeah. This is where we have practical education, functional education. Let us learn something like tailoring 101. Let us learn something like plumbing 101. Let us go back to learning things that will solve our own problems. I wrote there too that why don't we study waste management science?
Yes, when you talk about proper sanitation.
Yes, well, everywhere is dirty.
Yes, and there's a whole lot of money to make from a dirty environment.
Now in Nigeria, if you want to make POP, you say, let's go to Benin, where there are a lot of graduates wasting, because now we consider tiling plumbing as a dirty job. And
Yes.
all those things are what we call skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
And those people that are
Yeah.
doing it right now in Nigeria are not
And
Nigerians.
not
And if you want to
Nigerians.
get a very good Tyler,
So-
you must go outside the country.
So that is not the fault of leadership.
now,
That is also, no, that is the fault of the youth.
now, there's something happens. There are productions you cannot go into when you don't have policies to guide them. There's something I said about when you talk about not only this thing. There's something I talk about language. I saw Wazobia FM.
Yeah.
There's this Wazobia FM. It's owned by a Lebanese
Yeah.
that saw the media potential in the pidgin English. You understand? This is something that he saw and said, wow, let us do this radio station, and he's making millions off of it. This is a person that came from another country. Now, what am I saying?
And another thing is, we don't really appreciate our own.
Confidence.
Yes, which I
Confidence.
want you to expatiate
Yeah.
on what you've just said, because there is also a part where you said it in your book, and it also struck me. You said, I remember when our teachers punished us for speaking our native language,
Yeah.
Igbo. It depends on whichever language
Yeah.
extraction you are within the school premises. Our teachers were Igbo too, but they refer to our language as vernacular.
Yeah.
This practice swept us away from our culture so much that if a man on our street cannot communicate his vision in English language, he hardly finds avenues to accomplish it. Okay, yes. We were sparingly introduced to our local foods in some home economic classes, and were never told that these foods can be improved on. Just like what you say. I think last week was the week of indigenous languages, if I'm not mistaken, and all of that. Taking our local languages, for example, is there a role that our local languages can play in this industrial revolution? Anyway,
Definitely.
one will say, what do Chinese people speak? Even if they know how to speak English, they won't speak it to you. Isn't, I don't know if you're going that route.
The
Explain.
potentials are not only resources. I see, okay, now look at the Nigerian music industry. Look at the way we accepted our language in the music industry. And we are one of the biggest in Africa now. You see Fino.
The biggest.
Even in the world, that
Even
a
in the
lot
world,
of
yeah.
musicians,
They are
yes.
accepting
Yeah.
Nigerian music.
You see Fino, he's a lyricist. And he goes back to our old poems, like Olamide. He goes back to Melo, Melo.
Yeah.
And he's singing these things. You understand that they were Yoruba poems when we were small. And he processed them into music. This is when we have accepted. Now, we have not chosen our language because, okay, I see something like the pidgin English. I went to school. You saw, you didn't go to school in Nigeria now. But there's this.
I went to school. I did secondary school. I was actually rejected admission. That was why I traveled out.
There's this language we call Kegaite.
Yeah, Kegite, that was in university.
Yeah.
Kegaite is
Yeah.
so good a language that
But
it
it's
should
like
have
the
a radio
palm wine,
station.
yes, the
Yes.
palm wine
I don't
stuff.
want to, if we look at the palm wine, that's where culture comes in.
in.
Culture will tell us, no, this thing that cannot fly. But this is what we have. The same way we have cocoa, we have that Kegaite language. Why shouldn't it run on a radio station? Why shouldn't we have a radio station that speaks Kegaite? You see, you employ a lot of Kegaites because you've built a relevant industry with a language.
So teachers should stop telling our young people in schools, stop speaking vernacular when
Yeah.
you're which one is
Well,
vernacular?
no.
Should English be vernacular or our
me,
language?
For me, I think.
Or you're like from, let's say you're Yoruba,
Yeah.
both parents are Yoruba and your children are speaking
But
English
I
at
think,
home.
I think
and
Lagos,
you know,
recently Lagos State has adopted something like if you're in any secondary school, you have to learn Yoruba
Yes, even
language.
Imo State.
I schooled in Lagos
Yeah.
and I learnt Yoruba.
Yeah,
I can read Yoruba. I speak it. You know, I did school in Igbo, but I
Okay.
can speak Igbo. You know, I did school
in the
the East, but I speak Igbo. Not just I speak it, I speak my own language because I'm from Delta State. I speak my own language up till now, even with my siblings. When I come on TV, I speak English. But after TV, when I go home, I speak my local language. I don't think it should, isn't it? You're saying that we should, it's all encompassing.
Yeah, I think there should be a sense of balance.
There
We
should
balance.
definitely be a sense of balance, but we don't need to wipe away
We don't-
English language. because-
English language
yeah.
gives us a wider range of communication
Yes.
to many other people, but there should be a sense of balance. We should make things from it. That thing automatically made us see Opa as a food for poor people.
Poor people.
Because they learn English in school, so meat pie is now somehow better than Opa. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes, I get
Meat
you.
pie is somehow
So-
better than Opa now, so we'll go to fast foods to eat meat pie, and you feel big, you take pictures with it.
Yes,
But if
and,
you take Opa,
and in other words, we get obese.
yeah.
Okay, let's just take a few comments. There are a lot of comments coming in this morning concerning what we're talking about. For New Nigeria says, Nancy, how can I get the book the guy wrote? How
Okay,
can they
it's
get
on,
your
it's on
book?
Okada books.
I'm just giving you free adverts.
Oh,
today.
wow.
I don't know why. I'm just so drawn to you. That's why, So it's on Amazon, isn't it?
Okada books.
Okay, Okada books.
Okada
So
books, yeah.
you can get Obinna's book. Taiwo Ba says, kudos to Obinna, he's talking sense. Hilary says on Twitter, industrial revolution does not happen overnight. It takes a well-planned policy framework with the buying of the populace into the big picture. The regular framework, which includes electricity, access to funding, infrastructural support, must also be in place. Cute says, it would be erroneous to think that teaching core members how to make candles is a misplaced priority. A visit to ShopRite will show you how much more candles are regarded, even as fragrance. That's all those candles that have fragrance, isn't it? Anyway, so many comments coming through. All right, I think this is where we'll end the program today. It's as if we shouldn't end, Shay. We should keep talking.
Definitely.
But I want to say many thanks to you both for coming on today's edition of the program. I've been speaking to Obinna Uzoije. Uzoije.
Yes.
Yeah,
Uzoije.
that's a fine name. Uzoije, he's an author as well as an entrepreneur. He's an author. He did write Child of Industry. So you can check that out. If they Google it, they should be able to.
Of course.
So just Google it, Child of Industry. Henrich Akomolafe is the MD Architects Nigeria. Well, thank you for being a part of the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both again.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's the much you can take on today's edition of the program. Please join us again tomorrow for another edition. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Bye now.